And I have said it many times, and I'm not afraid to say that I believe the Jews brought it on themselves. They carried on in just a completely irresponsible, reckless, racist, bigoted, supremacist way, and it's caused a lot of animus to rise to the surface.
The association with Judaism and Israel.
I think it was just this kind of completely reckless arrogance. You know, the fact of the matter is, these Jewish billionaire supremacists, they destroyed academic freedom in our universities and colleges beginning in the spring of 2024. That's just a fact. One of the ironies of the current moment is what are supposedly the bastions of freedom of speech in our country, which are the universities, this complete reign of terror. What happened was they weren't able to maintain that reign of terror in our electoral arena. So things that you can't say on a college campus, you can't say on a university campus, you can't say in an election. They were unable, they tried with money to outspend. I guess the figure I read now, Abdel El-Sayed, the last number.
$54 million. Specifically, APAC and APAC subsidiaries.
But he said the ratio was 12-1, I believe.
It's even higher in certain areas,
Okay. So they tried to outspend, but they were not able to silence the campaigns, the various primary campaigns, which are very harsh on Israel. They were not silenced. In the case of the universities, they threatened to withhold alumni contributions unless the encampments were crushed and all criticism of Israel was crushed. In that case, the money weapon worked. You couldn't say a word. It turns out that our electoral system is less vulnerable to financial blackmail than our universities. Our universities, they shut down all discussion. They were not able to do it.
Well, they weren't able to do it. You vote.
What?
At the end of the day, you still vote. And I think the level of enmity towards Israel is too powerful a force.
Say that again?
I think the level of enmity towards Israel, especially in relation to its impact on American politics, is far too powerful of a force that as long as we still go out and cast the vote.
Except that there was a lot of enmity on the college campuses also.
Yeah.
But the financial blackmail of the Jewish billionaire supremacists, it worked. It did not work in the electoral arena. I would also want to add...
Don't you think there's also a financial component there, though?
There was a financial...
Not just direct alumni donations. I'm talking about the entanglements that maybe even a campus like Columbia has directly with Israeli real estate developers, for example.
That is...
Like they have a campus in Israel.
What you're saying is obviously true. I, however, believe we have to disaggregate. That wasn't the real issue that came up. The divestment, the BDS, it wasn't the main issue. For the Jewish billionaire supremacist class, the issue was those encampments had captured public attention, and it wouldn't go away.
Yeah.
You remember, they just kept spreading and spreading and spreading, and then they were spreading in Europe and elsewhere.
Yeah.
So they wanted to stop that because it was a problem for Israel. It meant if they were spreading, then talk about Gaza was not disappearing. It was growing. So that I think was the issue. For me, the interesting fact was they were able to succeed with their blackmail to crush the dissent, but they were not able to crush the candidacies. They tried, Mamdani was 30-1.
They're still
the
trying.
spending. It was either 30 or 40 million to 1 million. But the blackmail did not succeed. I'll tell you, I live in an all-Jewish neighborhood. And I remember when the Mamdani primary, I had, believe it or not, 11, 12, 13 circulars stuffed in my mailbox saying Mamdani's a terrorist, Mamdani is this, Mamdani is that. I got one piece of literature, and it was after the primary was over. So they tried, but they were unable to crush the open dissent in the electorate. And by the way, it wasn't just the universities. I have friends, doctors, nurses, terrified to say anything in their social media about not having nothing to do with the hospital.
I mean, the early days in 2023, there were very high profile firings that took place, and it was almost this shameless endeavor. You had doxing trucks on college campuses that were plastering student faces.
It was only, by the way, it was not only on college campuses. You know what they did at Harvard? They rented the trucks to go into the neighborhoods of their parents.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The students' parents. 300.
It's one of the most insane things that I
had to say to myself,
I've never seen anything like it.
I had to say to myself, my parents didn't disagree with my politics. The apple didn't fall far from the trees. But if one of those trucks came in front of their house, my parents would have killed me. They would have killed me.
Yeah.
So they were really so ruthless. And that brings us back to, we're now full circle. A lot of the resentment towards Jews, it has a rational foundation.
It leans into the pre-existing tropes that harken back to an era where there were a lot of falsehoods. It's the same concept as blood libel, which is a real instance of anti-Semitism, blaming Jews for poisoning the well.
Israel targets children in Gaza.
But then, yes, attributing that to something that we can visualize, something that we can see with our own two eyes, like Israel killing children in Gaza, is unbelievably harmful if you care about combating anti-Semitism.
And it's not only harmful to combating anti-Semitism. See, the problem, in my view, is any definition you come across of anti-Semitism, if you were to open up a Webster's, if you were to open up an Oxford English Dictionary and OED definition, they always insert the word irrational, an irrational hatred of Jews, an irrational belief that Jews are this, the Jews are that. Here's the problem. What if a lot of the resentment is rational? What if a state calling itself the state of the Jewish people, what if your resentment at the genocide it's perpetrating, what if it's rational? What if Jews are carrying on in a flagrant, brazen fashion to suppress our right to freedom of speech and using their considerable financial power to do so? If you resent Jews for that, is it anti-Semitism? But it's rational. It's rational to resent people using their financial wealth to crush dissent, to threaten students with suspension, to threaten them with expulsion, in some cases, to threaten them with deportation. In some cases, the students are being absconded with and sent into places God only knows where. When those things were happening, did Bill Ackman say anything? Did he denounce it? Did he say it was wrong what was done to Muhammad Khalil? No, he did not. So, or when Sheryl Sandberg abets the genocide by coming out with this fake film about Hamas rape called Screams Without Silence, if you resent the power that Jews use, is it anti-Semitism? I can't see that it is, because of the problem that every definition incorporates some notion that it's irrational. There's nothing irrational about that resentment. And that's, you say it's harder to fight anti-Semitism. I think the problem is even bigger. The problem is it even anti-Semitism? When an ethnic group uses its financial and its political clout in order to further a Jewish supremacist agenda, is that anti-Semitism? I don't think it is.
So here's where you and I differ on this issue. I am reminded, and I used to use this all the time, of the March 1919 speech that Lenin delivered on anti-Semitic pogroms. And I think this is something that you will agree with me on as well, which is that the socialist, communist, Marxist interpretation revolves around class struggle, and that the obvious scapegoat, the scapegoating of any kind of ethnic minority, in this circumstance being Jews, is a very commonly deployed trope, a commonly deployed tactic, and that no group of people are monolithic. And I think you also agree with me on that as well. And that my understanding always has been, or the way that I talk about these issues always is revolved around the notion that if organized Jewry was this monolithic force, in the way that many Jewish Zionist Americans in key positions of power try to present it as, utilizing the vague interpretation of Zionism, or even saying Israel's a Jewish state, Israel has to remain a Jewish state, Israel has demographic concerns. Why should we care about that? We don't care about that with any other country. As a matter of fact, when Nick Fuentes says we have demographic concerns, or when Tucker Carlson says we have demographic concerns here in America, we understand that as white supremacy. We understand that as white nationalism, and we find it abhorrent.
Totally agree.
So why is there this distinction? The way I approach this issue is, if there was this monolithic understanding, there would not be such a gigantic generational divide, and there wouldn't be billions of dollars invested in ensuring that young American Jews, young Jews in Europe, are indoctrinated into this false understanding, this false notion
listen,
that, you know.
Hasan, Mr. Piker. Of course, what you're saying is true.
Yeah.
I have a credo. It's my own little credo. Never quarrel with facts. What you're saying is true. Okay? And we have to start with that.
Yeah.
The problem is this. If there's a significant number of people carrying on in this way, is it really irrational? And as I said, a part of a core...
that part I don't disagree with you
core
on.
definition of anti-Semitism that's supposed to be irrational. Is it really irrational if people make a leap and say, the way Jews are carrying on is completely outrageous? Does that really shock the conscience when people reach that conclusion? Israel calls itself the state of the Jewish people. So is it so shocking if people conclude that when Israel carries on this way, it's acting...
And its defenders say that they're doing this at the behest of Judaism.
At the behest of the Jewish people? Is that such a shocking conclusion?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. And I don't really, at some level, I don't really quarrel with people who reach the wrong conclusion. I'm going to say, okay, my parents passed through the Nazi Holocaust. They lost on both sides of both sides, my mother and father, lost every single member. To their dying day, they hated every German. Every German. Okay? Did I like that? Not really. Did they ever quarrel with them about it? Never. Did they ever argue with them about that? Never. I understood from their experience. I remember I once asked my mother the question. I was curious. I said, did you ever meet a German during the extermination who showed some sympathy? She thought very hard. She thought very hard. And then she said, I remember once a German soldier, he had a look on his face of feeling a little guilty. She said, I remember one. So is it so shocking that she generalized from her experience and hated all Germans. I don't find that particularly shocking. And given what she endured, there was no way on God's earth that I would dare to quarrel with that experience. Did I think it was wrong? Yes. Do I have German friends? Yes. But would I argue? No. And in the same way, will I argue with a Palestinian or a Gazan who hates all Jews? Never. I would never argue with it. That's their experience. I will now not, which is totally out of character for me, I will not talk to an Israeli. You crossed the red line. You've gone too far. I've read too many human rights reports. You have targeted, Targeted. You have targeted too many Gazan children. You have targeted too many in their head. You have targeted too many in their chest. You have targeted too many toddlers. Now you say, well, that's generalizing. That's not every Israeli. Well, it's not really, is it not? I've read the polls. The polls show that these polls are taken like every 2 weeks since the Gaza genocide. And you know what the poll showed?
80% support.
5% of Israeli Jews thought Israel was using too much force. 95% said either sufficient force or not enough force. Of those 95%, 40% said not enough force. I can go through many, many polls. Israel, to its no, I wouldn't say honor, but it has a citizen army. I think the citizen army is a correct concept. Everybody should have to pay that ultimate price to defend their country. An army should not be composed of the poor or those who have no futures. So they say, you benefit from the independence of your country. Everybody should have to serve to defend the country up to and including the ultimate sacrifice. Okay? But then there's a problem. You have a citizen army. You know what a citizen army means? It's representative of the population. Now, if that citizen army is committing genocide, it's also representative of the population. It's not an unfair generalization to say this is a nation of child killers, to say this is a nation of child murderers. That's a fact. So then you say, well, but the number who actually target children, yes, it's horrible. Yes, it's terrible. The most recent.
No, it's the complicity.
The most recent UN Commission of Inquiry report on assaults on children, they targeted an orphanage, But, okay, you say that's still a handful. But here's the question. It was being reported already in mid-2024. It was already being reported. Israel's using starvation as a method of war in Gaza. Everybody agreed on that. The EU foreign policy chief, Gutierrez, everybody agreed. Israel's using starvation as a method of war. Okay? Now, it's not easy to use starvation as a method of war. You have to seal all their points of entry. You have to blow up food banks in Gaza in order to make that work. The whole Israeli army was implicated. And you know what? You know who you're trying to starve? 1.1 million of those 2.3 million Gazans are children.
Yeah.
You are concretely implicated, or to use your word, complicitous in starving children. Okay, guys, you lost me. If I meet somebody in the street or at the beach, because I'm right near Coney Island Beach, and the person says, I'm from Gaza, excuse me, I'm from Israel, I walk away, won't talk. You lost me. So to get back to your original question,
I'm a little bit too woke for this, and only because it's interesting. I had a very similar, well, not on this issue, but
I'm not proud of. I'm not happy with what I'm saying. On the other hand, I think a line has been crossed, because I said to you earlier.
There are things that I agree with what you said. I'm just saying that I have a more optimistic perspective in terms of changing people's minds.
Right. I said to you earlier.
The facts.
I said to you earlier, there are a couple of misconceptions about Gaza, and I said one of them is it's a war, and I said there was a second and I said my mind slipped, but I know it'll come back to me. The second misconception is, as you know, even people like Bernie Sanders, who I like, just like I like Brad Landler, I don't have the litmus test sort of thing. Are you a Zionist? Are you now, or have you ever been a Zionist? I'm not too caught up on the litmus tests. I want to see a general picture. And in general, Bernie was horrible the first month, horrible the second month, but then he turned around, whether it was public, whether it was because he saw public opinion. He wasn't bad afterwards, except for one thing, which is I'm going to get to now, and which will probably is why you're expressing reservations. And that was the question of who's the problem.
Benjamin Netanyahu.
And it's not Netanyahu.
No, it's not. I know. I'm just.
Yes, I understand, and we're on the same wavelength. It's not Netanyahu. As I've said over and over again, the problem is not the Israeli state. The problem is the Israeli society. Those folks have gone mad. They are psychotic in their relish at the death and destruction in Gaza. The problem is Israeli society. So you may say you're woke, so you're against these generalizations.
No. I just meant, I believe
I believe
that you can still change someone's mind.
Israel calls itself the state of the Jewish people. And the problem is the Jewish people of Israel are mad. The kinds of relish they express at the death and destruction in Gaza. To me, I have to tell you, and I've said this, and maybe it's an idiosyncrasy of mine. There was a great historian once. His name was Arnold Toynbee. Okay? And he once wrote this history of humanity. I guess he got through like 15 volumes, and then he passed. And when he came to discuss Israel and Zionism, he said that the Zionists have created a new Jewish psychophysical type. The Israeli Jews, they're not Jews. I know that will come as kind of paradoxical.
No.
But they're not Jews.
I understand what you're
When
saying.
I was growing up, you know what a Jew was? A Jew was somebody who was smart, read a lot, was creative, culturally creative, and physically kind of feeble. There were a few Jewish sports heroes like Hank Greenberg. Again, the names will come back.
Adam Friedland.
No. A few, but in general, Jews were seen as being kind of scrawny, physically feeble. And so you think of a Jew, Franz Kafka, with the big ears, the high forehead. The classic one of my generation was, of course, Woody Allen. He was nerdy, very creative, he played an instrument, he acted, he was a writer, a comedian, a director. That was a Jew for us. The Israeli type is totally alien to what it was in my generation to be a Jew. So I don't even consider, I mean, if Israel called itself, believe me, if you want to solve the problem of anti-Semitism in the world, 95, not the full part, because Jews do exercise disproportionate power, wealth, and so forth. And that will always be a problem for Jews. But 95% of the problem would be eliminated if Israel just called itself the state of the Nazi people. It'll be over. Just drop the Jewish part. And a large part
I don't disagree with you. That's why my criticism is entirely around the identity on Zionism, which is why I talk about the distinction, regardless of how people perceive it. There is, there's very stubborn. There's a very stubborn retort towards that to say, no, Zionism means something different to me. And this attitude, I think, is carried by a lot of American Jews.
But I don't care very much what it means to you. You can.
No, I'm not saying it means to me.
Right, but
I'm
I mean,
saying,
they can say whatever it means to them. I just want you to take a stand on one question. Do you believe that Jews as Jews should have superior rights to non-Jews in the state of Israel, for that matter, anywhere else? And then you say Zionism is the national liberation movement of the Jewish people. Fine. I don't really agree with that, but if that's what you believe, that's fine. For me, that's an ideological question. It's not a political question. You can believe whatever you want. But on the practical political question, do you think there should be a state which privileges one ethnic group over another? And that, to me, is the way Mamdani handled it, and I thought it was correct. It was very well done.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.